I'm here with Amie McNee. Amie, how are you today?
I'm all the better for speaking with you, Michael. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so grateful for you to be here. And it's been a few weeks of us trying to catch up to find the time. So I'm so grateful for you being here with me today.
Honestly, yeah, I can't wait to have this conversation. I'm tucked up in a little bar in the middle of England and I'm ready. I've got my little drink by my side and I'm ready to have a very big conversation. So let's go.
I love it. I love it. Well, Amie, first of all, thank you for, in a world just full of, gosh, clicks and the how tos of Instagram and social media. I think it's rewarding to have someone like you that's just authentic and is not afraid to be vulnerable. So, thank you so much for that. First of all, and does that come natural to you? You're just like, this is who I am. This is what we're doing.
First of all, thank you. Thank you for seeing me. I'm very, very grateful. Um, I think I really became the person I needed, and I really needed these conversations, and I really needed some honesty and vulnerability around how hard it is to pursue creativity and to pursue entrepreneurship and to pursue the arts. I needed a real person to talk about it in real life. And so I couldn't find it. And so I was like, fuck it, I guess I'll just have to become it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really the beginning of this journey. Was I felt so lonely,
Mm.
and I needed support. So I was like, well, if there's no one out there right now, I'll just be the support. And in doing so, was changed my life. I now have incredible creative community all around me.
Mm-hmm. That kind of leads into my next question, Amie. Is you're known for not only being an author and a speaker. And how many books have you written so far? I know you have the new one coming out. Does that make
I got a new baby coming out. It's like what would that make it? That's my sixth book
six?
coming
Okay,
out.
I thought it was
Yeah.
five or six. And you've done some speaking, but also what you and I were just talking off camera. What drew me and grabbed my attention with you is just your inspirational platform and Instagram and YouTube. And so um, kind of piggyback on what you just said, like what made you want to go down this path of, yes,
Mm.
I'm writing books, yes, I'm doing some speaking, but there's a different path here. I feel like you felt the need that, hey, you've got a great voice to share this message. Like what made you want to go down that path of like, I think others need to hear that they can do it too.
Again, it was because I really fucking needed someone to say it. I started just saying the shit that I needed someone to tell me. And I was looking to aspirational figures in my industry, like historical fiction writers, and no one was saying what I needed them to say. And I felt so unsupported. And I was like, I asked myself, I was like, what do you want? What do you want the world to say to you, Amie? And I started writing it down. I had a huge journaling practice. I still do. What do I need to hear? And so I wrote all these things down and then I started saying them out loud, writing them on signs, sharing them on social media. And watching the response has been such a privilege and it's been incredible. Like it's my 10-year anniversary on Instagram this month. And just thinking about how beautiful this growth has been and how important it is to say the stuff that you need to hear out loud. Yeah, it's been a huge journey, but I'm so grateful that I was so brave. And because I was so brave, I was like 21 years old when I started this platform. And I was like, I guess I'm just going to take up some space. And yeah, I'm very proud of that woman.
Yeah. Do you give yourself some of that advice? Do you ever give yourself notes that you carry around all day, like that you would have maybe posted on Instagram, or are some of those that we see, or those what Amie gives herself first?
Michael, every note you see on Instagram is for Amie first.
I love that.
I can't, otherwise, how do I know it? Like, these
Yeah.
are the lessons I'm learning, and it's such a privilege to get to learn it with other people. But it's always for me first. Occasionally, because the more work I do, the more work I see with other creatives, and I'll see situations creatives are in that I don't personally experience. But basically, 99% of my content and my writing is like Amie first, and then I
Hmm.
know that others will join me.
Yeah. Okay, Amy, I want to dive into the form of art that you're most noted for, and it's your passion, and that is, of course, writing and being an author. Getting started into that space, what advice, and I know you've talked about this passionately, would you give to someone who says, I don't I don't even know how to start part time. Full time seems so overwhelming. I don't even know how to be a part time author or writer. I've got
Mm.
something burning in my heart. How do I get it on paper? And then for those who are doing it part time, it's like, okay, I can do that, and it seems very. It doesn't seem very intimidating, but I could never imagine trying to launch this to full time. So, how would you kind of talk to people about getting
Yeah.
started a part time author and then into full time?
I love this big journey. And it is a journey, like, and we only have to take baby steps at a time. So for someone who's like, I've got this idea, but I don't, who the fuck am I to write a book? Like, I've never done anything this big in my life. And a book that's like hundreds of thousands of words, like, how could I, like, that author? I'm looking at you, like, the only way we write stories is by taking tiny steps. I have a 500 word limit a day. I do not write more than 500 words a day. It can be so much smaller than that. If you're someone who struggles to show up, have an 100 word limit a day. And the caveat to this is make sure that they're allowed to be shitty. I know we were talking about this before, Michael. My first drafts are nonsensical, and they need to be that way in order for me to start piecing together what it is I'm creating. So I'm asking you to just take a tiny step, write 200 words of some shitty art, and begin the journey of writing a book, because that is literally how the books get made. So I think we got to take our ego out of it, because I think when we think, oh, I'm going to be an author, we're like, okay, well, I'll sit down and I'll won't talk to anyone, and I'm going to write, 3,000 words a day, maybe minimum. And it's like this, it doesn't have to be the way it is. For some people, maybe, but I'm a full-time author. I still only write 500 words a day. Like, we've got to scale it back. It's not as romantic as we think it is. It's actually a very messy, ridiculous process writing a book.
Mm, okay, so I'm gonna have to. These are questions I wanted to ask you later, but I feel like the timing is perfect
Yeah,
now
bring them up.
because I don't want to forget. This is perfect timing. So when you go through that process, Amy, you're like, okay, I write. Like, first of all, I think that needs repeated again. Someone who's a full time author just released her sixth book. You're saying max 500 words. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So for a beginner to say, hey, 100 words, give yourself that freedom. I think that's
It's
that's
beautiful.
huge.
And it's so kind. And like, I think we think we've got to like crack the whip and be so disciplined, or like a book, oh, that's so serious. Like, and it is serious, it is a big deal, but we don't have to take the process seriously. Like, it's still messy, it's still playful, and it can still be a little step each day. We have so much going on in our lives. And before we are part-time, before we are full-time, we're living multiple lives at once. We have our regular work, so many of us are parents, we have caregiving roles, we have friends, we've got to take care of our body. There's a lot going on. If we want to add a book into this, let's do it baby step by baby step. It's a beautiful way for books to get written. And as you said, like, I'm a full-time author. I write all my books 500 words a day.
Mm. And I know I was just talking to someone about this yesterday about, going to the gym and doing a workout, and that's really not the hard part. It's walking through the door. So I'm kind of hearing you say the same thing. It's just
Yes.
show up, sitting down at your laptop and saying, okay, I'm going to commit to 100 words today. I'm going to commit to 500 words today.
Exactly, Michael. I think so many people say, "Well, I'm not motivated." I'm like, "Baby, I'm there whether I'm motivated or not, and I'll just write some random fucking crap." Um, it doesn't matter. Just show up, put something on the page, do it. Like, this is not a pretty process. It's messy. It's playful. Fuck around, find out.
So much freedom in that. So then how do you incorporate after you get to quote unquote the finish line coming back and then the editing process? Is that more as a pure artist and someone that has this like aha big ideas that can just show up there and give themselves the freedom to write shitty words and say I don't even care, today was a good day, today was an off day? How do you come back then? Is that more of a strategic, is that a little bit painful at times to go back and edit?
Oh, I mean, I'm classic, like, listen to me, like, I'm a first drafter. I love the mess of the first draft.
Yeah.
My partner, who also writes books, is an editor. And so the first draft's very hard for him. And then he really thrives in the organizing of the mess. Whereas I'm so messy, Michael. Like, people think I'm exaggerating. Like, it won't make any sense. Like, that's how shitty my art is. So coming back in that second draft is a big challenge for me. But again, my second draft doesn't have to be good, Michael. My third draft doesn't have to be good. Like, I'll take as long as I need to get there to make it good. So I keep giving myself permission for it to be shit. So even if it's like in the editing process, okay, I'm going to do half an hour. So in the editing process, I tend to give myself time frames rather than 500 words. So let's just sit down for half an hour to 45 minutes and see what you can untangle. And it's just like, just putting in those little grinding hours. And yeah, sometimes I will be so confused because what I've written hardly makes sense, and it can be very frustrating. But this is just part of the process. We just got to put in those hours. We got to show up for our art, and we'll get there eventually. It just takes time.
Mm-hmm. Amy, let's
Are
talk
you an
about
editor or a drafter? Real quick.
drafter for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
I wanted to ask that because, well, I guess here we are. I told you off camera. I think I've told 5 people I'm starting. I've started my first book, and I'm maybe 75% through the first draft, and it's rewarding to hear that because, as we talked about, Anne Lamott says write a really shitty draft and just go, and her amazing book Bird by Bird. But listening to everything you've set up until this point, I was like, I think Amy has that same mentality of just go, get it out, puke it out, and then come
Yeah.
back. And yeah, I know the thought of editing does make me a little queasy.
It is a lot, especially when you first come back in and you're like, oh my God, what pile of shit is this? But just know you're not alone. You're not alone.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I feel like I forced you to confess your authorly tendencies there,
I knew
but
it
I'm
was
so
happening.
excited for your book.
I knew leading up to this, I'm like, well, this is where it's going to come out. This is where it's going to come out. Yeah. But now I have to,
And I'm
right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm watching you, Michael, and I'm excited for what it is you're making. But yeah, I mean, it can be draft two, I think, is when we often need the most support. And it's a lot of resiliency because when you come back into that big pile of mess, if you are as messy as the first drafter as me, and maybe as you, Michael, like it takes a lot of like, it's okay that it's a mess. We'll just slowly unpick it. It's like when you're like looking at a really messy room, it's like, or a really messy kitchen. It's like, well, I guess I'll just get started on putting the cutlery away first. You just pick your thing and then you stick to that. So like maybe it's like, okay, well, maybe I'll just look at like one character this draft and take it slowly. Like I think so many of us want to rush this process. Like honor your own pace.
hmm Amy, what about the listeners who say, I'm not writing a book or I'm not trying to create a piece of art right now, but I'm trying to create a nonprofit or launch a business. And I feel like this is a good segue into that. Probably applies for that too. I mean, really, you've launched this Inspired to Write brand, and it's its own company, its entity, and it's you, but it's kind of behind the why and inspiration and that a lot of the stuff we've just talked about, the how to. But how would you correlate that into someone who says, I'm not writing a book, but how does this
You're still
correlate?
in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say immediately, you're still an artist. Entrepreneurship to me is one of the most beautiful forms of art, and I feel
Yeah.
like it's not respected that way. Creatives, entrepreneurs are highly creative, and they are making art. Whatever it is your business is, like I just see the art of business as being as much of an art as painting is, and I feel like we need to respect it that way. So please know that if you're a business person or you're an entrepreneur, like I see you and I see what you're doing, and you're creating something that wasn't there before to connect with people, and that's my definition of art. You're creating something to connect. And so I want entrepreneurs to feel the kind of sanctity of what it is they're doing, that it is an art form in itself.
I 100% agree. I think the common denominator of all of it is, any company I've been a part of or created was, hey, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to be very vulnerable and say, I made this. I hope you like it. And if you don't, that's okay. Maybe it's not for you, but I'm going to find my tribe who does. And
That's
or
art.
yeah, yeah, and remove the ego enough to know, do I need to pivot, make some changes if needed. But yeah, I
Yeah,
completely agree.
beautiful. I love that. Yeah, no, I think something that artists, traditional artists feel like, oh, marketing or entrepreneurship or business, oh, it's icky. It's not about the art. I'm like, all I want is that story to change. Like entrepreneurship is art. It's an extension of our art. Like when we write a book and then we have to sell it, like that's just an extension of our art. Like it's so important. And I
Mhm.
really want that narrative to shift. I want the ickiness to be taken out of entrepreneurship and marketing and branding. And I want people to understand that it is an art form. It's so creative and I find it so fucking fun.
Yeah. Amy, you and your partner James recently talked about on your podcast, I believe it was, the comparison of an artist to an athlete, and I thought that was
Love
so.
it.
Yeah, I thought that was so beautiful. Could you talk about that?
I mean, in all of our processes, you can compare what we do to athletes, the way that we prepare ourselves, the way that we commit to our creativity, the way that we need rest, like the way that artists look after their bodies, and the way they prioritize their sleep and their rejuvenation. Like that's what artists need to be doing. Like there are so many ways in which we can learn from athletes. The way that they invest in themselves and they invest in coaches, they get community. Like artists just don't do that, and we have so much to learn, I think, from athletes and sports people, because they are allowed to take themselves seriously to a much higher extent than the artist is and the writer is, even than the entrepreneur is. I feel like take care of yourself. You are the artist and you have so much to give, and we have so much to learn from athletes, but I particularly love the self-care aspect of the athlete and the way that they invest in themselves. Like we need to do that as the artist.
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the things I'd mentioned that you had mentioned too was the comparison to an injury, right? When an athlete comes back from an
Exactly.
injury, they'll put them in a sub league, like a minor league system, or they start off with doing 2 reps when they could have done 10 just 6 weeks ago, and so I think
Exactly.
same with the art part of it is injury in the form of like burnout.
Exactly. Like I think a lot of us get so frustrated when we have to take time away from the art. It's like this happens, and also we're not made to create 24/7. Take time away, and then I see artists come back and they go full throttle. I'm like, you wouldn't come full throttle back from an injury ever. You would never do that. You would ease yourself in. You might not even play the game for a little bit. So as an artist, how are you going to take care of yourself if you've had a long time away from your art? Like ease yourself in, like let go of that ego. The ego has to go if we're going to be successful creatives, just as the ego has to go for sports people if they're going to come back from injury.
Yeah, why do we do that to ourselves? It's like if we're not doing it every day, all day, that we're no longer we remove the label. Well,
It's ridiculous.
I was an entrepreneur, but I stopped pursuing this part of the business for 3 days because I got burned out, or I stopped
Exactly.
stopped writing my book because I got scared. I wasn't sure what the next part should be, and I did some research. It's like, oh well, I'm no longer a writer because I stopped for a week or two. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think it's because we live in a culture where um, the artist is like highly venerated. And oh, if you're going to be an artist, it breaks so many rules. I think people think they really have to prove their worth. We have to be chosen and we have to work really hard. Like I know this was my story. Like I have to be chosen by a publisher and I have to absolutely deck myself to the point of burnout in order to be able to earn the title of author. And it's ridiculous and it's detrimental. And it's like I earn the title of author because I show up and I write 500 words every day. I earn the title of author because I chose myself. Like I picked myself and I said, yeah, I'm going to write. Like we don't need to earn our way to artistry. It is ours if we choose to create, and we don't need to burn out. We don't need to give anything up. Like it is ours to take right now. And yeah, that's not something we're told a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that definitely needs to be talked about more, and we need to shine some more light on. Amie, you inspire so many people with a lot of your posts and your just words of encouragement, just being raw, just vulnerable and raw. Where do you get your inspiration from?
I think because I practice every day, I create every day. Like I come across some bullshit in my mind every day. I'll sit down to write and I'll have a little voice that says, I don't think you have anything good to say. And, so then I'm like, okay, well, let's bring this to the community because I can't be the only one who thinks this. I've had this thought randomly for a few days in a row of, oh, I don't think you have anything good to say, Amie. So I'm like, okay, well, let's write this out. Let's talk this through and let's bring it to community. And then you sit with a load of artists who say, that's what I think too. And it's like, where's this coming from? Is it a fear response? And so every day I face my art, which means every day I get to think about what it means to be a creative, which means every day I get to make content about what it means to be a creative.
Stephen Pressfield talks a lot about resistance with the capital R. And
Capital R, baby.
oh my gosh, Amie, how do you deal with resistance? I know you kind of leaned in a little bit here in this past few minutes about it, but I mean,
Mm.
you have that. You're human. You have that sit down like the rest of
I'm
us, where
always resistant.
yeah, where you open up that laptop, you're like, ugh, how do you combat that? How do you get those 500 words out? I guess more when you don't feel like it.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard. I want to acknowledge it's just hard. Like, well, artists are incredible. Like, I'm so proud of us. Like, I'm so proud of you. Like, what we do is really difficult, and we need to acknowledge that because resistance is hard. It's why Stephen writes so much about it because it's something that we all face, and I'm so grateful for his work. And I think I'm not sure if it's Stephen. I'm sure I learned it from Stephen, but like this idea that like resistance is the way. So whenever I feel
Mm,
resistance, I remind myself that that's a good sign. Like, there's something on the other side of this. Like, I'm grappling with something that's challenging me, and that means that there's something on the other side of that resistance. So the obstacle is the way, resistance is the way. When we meet with resistance, I try to incite some sort of like excitement. I'm like, oh, like there's something to this. Like I try and invert the idea that resistance means it's going wrong into resistance means it's going right. Like something's exciting
mm.
here. I'm about to have a level up. I'm about to learn something. So when I sit down and I don't fucking want to write, I'm like, okay, well, this is a day to prove to myself that I can write even on days when I fucking don't want to. When I've got a plot hole or a plot problem, I'm like, okay, well, this is the day that I get to be the author that knows how to fix this. And even if I don't, that I get to be on the journey of learning how to fix it. So yeah, just trying to invert that idea that resistance means it's wrong to resistance means there's something exciting on the other side has been a really big pivot for me.
Gosh, that's so true. I love that. I feel like that's again back to any form of art. I'm not a songwriter, but I got to imagine people sit down to write a song and they get to the end of it like, oh, that's why the resistance was there, or
Yes.
creating a company or something, anything.
Oh, of course, it happens in all forms of artistry. Yeah, so that I mean, don't get me wrong. Some days I'm just like, fuck this, I'll give up. Like I also give myself permission to give up sometimes. I'm a human being, and if something's really not working that day, and I just feel tired and it's not going, like every now and again, I'll just be like, fuck it today. I'm not doing my 500 words. That's important too. I'm not a fucking machine. But yeah, most of the time, I really try and invert it to mean resistance is a good sign. The obstacle is the way.
That's beautiful. I love that. Okay, Amy, I want to stop here. And again, one of the things that drew me into um, Inspired to Write and following you is your amazing quotes on Instagram. First of all, let's go back before I want. So I'm going to read three that are most recent. I want you to talk about. Before I do, uh, can't be by accident. Take me through the writing. Is it like on a canvas or a cardboard with the markers? Like, how did you come up with that idea?
It's a great question. I think it was really strategic. It was very much my entrepreneurial mind was at play here. And it was a while ago and I realized that the algorithm only liked it when I showed my face. And so I was like, fuck, okay, well, like I want to write my words, like, but it's super annoying because the algorithm seems to respond to when I show my face. So I pivoted into holding up my signs. So I was like my face and my words. And then slowly I feel like I've managed to teach the algorithm that the words are what's important, the words are what people need. So occasionally I'll hold up a sign, but now I feel like it accepts the fact that I just want to share my writing. But yeah, it was a real like strategic trying to grapple with this fucking monster of what is social media. I just was like, I need my words to get across. How can I use this app to make this work? And so yeah, that's what I came up with.
Love it. Love it. Okay. First quote: the artist's job isn't just to create, it's to champion what they create.
Mm. This
Is
is the entrepreneurship and the creative. Like, if you want to be an artist, you also want to be an entrepreneur. And the artists fucking hate that. But I'm telling you, it's a beautiful thing. And I'm sure you can understand the beautiful intersection of entrepreneurship and artistry. Like it's so well matched and it's so stunning. And if we want to create something, especially if we want it to connect with other people, then it's our job to champion it. If you create something, you champion it. Why should anybody else champion it if you're not willing to champion it? Like you have to back it and you have to back it repeatedly because you're your first fan. And I think a lot of artists want to make something and then have someone else take responsibility for it. And I know that would be lovely, but it's not what happens. And it's your job as the artist to back your own art. And that's yeah, I think people think, oh, it's not my job to do that. I can give it to somebody else. But I really firmly believe that it's a beautiful, holy part of the creative process. You make it, you share it, and then you champion it.
mm-hmm. Amy, can you dive a little deeper into championing? What exactly is there a couple examples you could give of how do you champion your
Yeah.
art?
I talk about it a fucking shitload, Michael.
You do, and you do it really well.
um, I speak very highly of my own work. I think that's something that a lot of artists struggle with.
Mm,
I've gotten very comfortable with saying, this is a very good book, and I think you'll really love it. Um, and I think a lot of artists are used to being that self-deprecating. Oh no, it's not good enough. Like that humble, which is very hard to come and promote and put your art out there if you come from that space. It's very difficult. I know this next generation of artists, for all of us to recognize that there's no shame in absolutely loving what you make and realizing it's safe to love what you make. But yeah, I'm talking about putting it in people's faces, talking about your art, putting it on social media, promoting it, being a business person about your art. That's what I mean when I say champion it.
yeah. Very, very new to the scene, but I've had those days where like I write something, I close a laptop, I'm like, holy shit, that was really good. Like I hope.
Yes. Yes. No, I mean, cling to that, Michael, and trust that instinct as well. Like you have good taste, like trust that when you've done something good and start practicing, I think, speaking very highly over your book because you're going to need that energy for when you sell it. And because also know that it's generous to speak highly over your work because people will need what you have to write. You've told me a bit about what this book is about. I know I need that book.
Mm,
So learn to speak highly about it now because promoting it is going to be a very generous act because people need it.
thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, the next one. I love this. To be a successful artist, you must be unrealistic and delusional.
This is again very like, this is why I pair the artist and the entrepreneur so closely together, because the entrepreneur also must be delusional and unrealistic. The artist is not here to look at what is realistic. We're not here to look at what is responsible. We're here to create a very new world with our art, which means we have to be delusional and unrealistic in order to be good at what we do. I want, we're the dreamers. We dream of a better world. And so everyone who's, very contained and, by the narratives of what is and what's right and what should be, like they're going to think that we're insane for the what we want to do, and that's good. We are here to push barriers. We are here to challenge people, and we are here to be a little bit delusional so that we can bring about a different world with our art. The artist's job is to be unrealistic and delusional. It's how we get incredible stuff done. So when you have a dream that feels ridiculous, know that that's a good sign. It's like resistance is a good sign. Feeling a little bit delulu is a great sign, because you're not here to fuck with reality. You're here to make something completely different, completely new. Artists, like, fuck the idea that you need to be, a reasonable person. That's not what you're here to do.
Mm, Delulu. I love
Delulu.
that. Okay. Last one. Again, this is really solid gold here. If you can't point to the big pile of recently made bad art, you aren't doing the work.
People think that a sign of doing well in their artistry is that they haven't made anything they hate recently. I'm like, you are avoiding something huge, and you are also like deeply like fucking this up.
Mm-hmm.
Artistry is about mess, and if
Mm-hmm.
you're not allowing yourself to make really bad things, then you're not doing the work at all. You need to be giving yourself space to play, space to make mess. That's the artist's job, and it's perfectionists try to protect themselves from doing the work, from being vulnerable by only making good things, and you're missing out on so much of your potential. A perfectionist will never see the great things they can make because they
Mm,
will never let themselves make the mess that is required for greatness.
yeah. That
Do you let yourself make mess?
I do. I think so. I told you I'm
Can you
roughly
point to your shitty work?
yes. Well, here's the thing: is and I don't know 36 ish thousand words. And I haven't gone back and read any of it. I have this weird thing of just like going
No,
straight
that's
ahead.
good.
Okay.
Michael, please know I only approve of that.
Okay.
It's one of my biggest things I say to writers: do not look back, just
Uh,
go.
Okay. But I also, and I think I talked about this maybe a few weeks ago on the podcast, was I have I have this thing where something with the elevation. When I'm in a plane, I will come up with, I'll have my journal, I'll come up with these ideas or my phone, and I'll start typing it in or writing it down. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best idea for my, for business. And then, as I say, I literally come back down to earth. And then, like a couple of days later, I'm going through my journal. I'm like, that was awful. That
What?
was so bad. And it's always when I'm in the plane. Now, there's a percentage. If I had to guess, maybe 30% are good. But yeah, it's
Yeah, and you had to spew the shit out for the good to get there. I love that. I love that. The elevation gets to you. You become extra to Delulu up in
uh
the
huh,
sky.
very Delulu, way up there at 38,000. So do you keep your quote unquote bad ideas, thinking maybe they're good ideas for a rainy day or for
Yeah,
another
I've
day?
got the. You should see my notes app, Michael. It's hilarious. It's hilarious and wonderful. Every now and again, you're like, "Holy shit, that's a really good idea." But I keep everything,
Yeah,
not in like a hoarding way, but just in case. You never know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, I think they're in there, but I think that's what the apprehension is with like thinking about editing. I'm like, because I got to go back and face me again and go,
You do.
hey, yeah, you had too much coffee that morning and the music was flowing just right, and you were Delulu.
Yeah, I mean that's beautiful, and there's going to be a lot of magic in that mess. There will be. It's just you're going to have to be very gentle with the parts that are crap. You're going to be like, "Well, Michael, you did the work. Like you did. You made
Mm-hmm.
some shitty art, and there's magic within there." Draft two is going to be a big emotional journey, but in a very beautiful way.
Thank you, Amie. How does comparison crush an artist's capabilities and I guess delay the process? Talk about comparison a lot. Did
Mm.
you deal with that? I'm sure you dealt with it more in the beginning than you do now when you have your platform and I feel like you know who you
Mm.
are. But like you said earlier, you're not a machine. You're human. How do you deal with
Yeah,
comparison? How do you see it crush people's capabilities?
yeah. I mean, please know I'm jealous all the time. I think I would have been jealous today somehow. I'm sure. Um, but I'm really trying to use jealousy as a compass. Like, okay, so you have that feeling. Like, what is it they have, and how do you want to integrate it into your life? I think Jealousy and comparison are slightly different. Comparison would be me really sitting myself next to that person and being like, oh, I'm not as good at that person at this, and really picking it apart. And that fucks up creatives. And so, what I say to creatives who are in patterns of comparison is, I'll say you're comparing yourself to someone. I would say, Michael, you are a one-time fucking phenomenon in this universe. Like, you will never be seen again, and you have never been seen before. Stop looking at other people. They are none of your business. You have such important work to do, and I need you to focus on your unique brand of magic. I think when we can focus on our own creativity and what it is we are doing and really stay in our lane, like, yeah, sure, sometimes our eyes will sneak side to side and we'll think, oh, fuck, what are they up to? Like, should I be doing that? But as long as we come back home to our art, like, you have something entirely unique that, again, it will never be seen. If you don't make it, it will never exist. And coming home to, you have a very unique something to give to the world. I think it helps artists just remember that it doesn't really matter what they're doing. Like, you're doing something different. And even though it can be hard when people are succeeding around you and you're not getting what you feel you deserve, and that's hard, and you're allowed to grieve that. But remember that, like, they're not taking your place. Like, you have something extremely unique to do, and you need to focus on that because it's fucking important.
Mm. Well, and if we're honest with ourselves, a lot of it is just the world we live in, right? With social media, gosh, it's so
Oh, it's
easy.
hectic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Protect yourself if you know you're very vulnerable to a certain person. Like, I have a whole chapter on jealousy and comparison in my book that's coming out next year called We Need Your Art. And I list everyone I'm jealous of.
Oh,
And then
wow.
it's like, like, for example, let's look at Anne Lamott. Like, I love Annie so much, and I love what she's done, and I'm definitely jealous of Annie. I love this way she has with words. I saw her live. I spoke actually at the same conference as her last year, and I was listening to her, and I was like, fuck, I'd love a way with words like that. I felt like that jealousy, and and that's beautiful. But, like, Amie, stay in your lane. Like, I have something to give that Annie can't give. Annie
Sure.
can't do what I can do. I can't do what Annie can do, but Annie can't do what I can do. And I think remembering that, coming home to that again and again and again, is cultivating a new narrative. You are spectacular. You are entirely unique. Stay focused because you have something so important to give. And whether that means blocking people on social media because you know they're going to trigger you, or keeping a very, like, clean, like, space so that you know that you're not going to, or even just don't read the stuff or watch the stuff that you know is going to provoke comparison. Like, try to stay with your eyes focused on the art because you have something so important to give.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
Do you
that's.
get jealousy and comparison a bit?
I jealousy, I'm usually able to call myself out on it very quickly, but yes, it
Mm.
does happen. What I can run into is comparison. Now, this is where the ego comes in, because I can run comparison of, oh, that person's doing things I've not yet done, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could do it with you, right? Like, oh my gosh, six
Yeah.
books,
Yeah.
like, but then I can quickly say, like, realistically, like, I can bring it back. But what I think a lot of people don't do, and I feel like our egos need checked, is I also compare the opposite. Oh, but I'm so much further ahead than that person, or or whatever. Right? Have
Oh,
you ever gone down that rabbit
yes.
hole? And it's like,
Of course.
you know,
Yeah, we do have to. I mean, the artist and the ego is I mean, that's a whole new book. Like, we really do have to keep an eye on that ego because it can go in multiple directions.
yeah.
um, and we need to keep an eye on those stories. I think it's a lot of the reason why I journal, to keep an eye on my stories,
Hmm.
to keep me grounded, and yes, to make sure that my narratives aren't keeping me small, but also to make sure that my narratives aren't blowing me out of proportion and making me be a douchebag.
Right. Well, and I think that's key for listeners, and I hear you saying too, and it's a common theme is, don't compare your chapter 1 with somebody else's chapter
Oh,
10,
ridiculous.
right?
Yeah.
They were,
So unfair. So deeply unfair.
yeah, like 10 years ago, Amie was on her chapter 1 of this journey, and
Exactly.
look where you are.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's going to look
Yeah. And I
different.
think, and it will. And also, like, I think people are like, oh, but I'm on chapter 10 and she's kind of on chapter 10 too. Why is she so much further ahead? And that's when it can get very, like, there's a justice streak, or this isn't fair. And it's like, there so much fucking unfair shit happens in the world of artistry. Our industries are fraught with, literal abuse and, like, systemic problems. Like, there's a lot of unfair stuff that happens. But I think, again, like, and we're allowed to be upset and pissed off and, like, grieve that. Like, I was very mistreated by the publishing industry back in the day, and, like, I needed to grieve that. But then I needed to come back to the art. I think coming back to the art always helps us.
Mm,
If we get so carried away, like, cerebrally, and, oh, that's not fair, like, I should have gotten that, like, just come back to the art. What book are you writing right now? Focus on the book, focus on the work, because I'm an artist. That's what I do. I don't sit here being bitter. I make stuff. And
hmm.
so I think really focusing on the action of creation can help us just move forward from ruminating on this stuff.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast recently in the past, I don't know, 6 months or so, and Rick Rubin was a guest on it, and the host was talking about they were at dinner a couple of nights before, and Rick's mindset is all about the art and his craft and learning about other people's, and he's so inquisitive. And the conversation at dinner turned to financial platforms. And not that there's anything wrong with that in Rick's eyes, but they said they noticed Rick kind of got quiet. And
Mm.
5 to 10 minutes went by, and Rick said, "Can we talk about art again?" Because to your point, like that was his how to bring it back to we're all on the same playing field if we're
Yes.
all creating. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. What a sage. And I'm so grateful that we got his book in our time period. Like, what a privilege it is to get to live when Rick Rubin lives. But yeah, let's bring it back to the art. When you're getting distracted by shit, like, come back to the art. What are you making? Because it's so
Hmm.
exciting. Like,
Yeah.
I think it can really, like, take that monkey brain and give it something to do. It's like, instead of ruminating over this, why don't you write the next chapter of the book?
Yeah. I love that you just said that the monkey brain, I feel like, is not talked about enough when it comes to this kind
Yeah.
of stuff, right? Like we can just let our minds run crazy and tell us like what you just said, I think early in the beginning was, I'd have nothing good to say, and it's
Yeah,
catching that monkey
exactly.
brain.
And instead of, yeah, that little part of me that's like, oh, why are you even talking? You have nothing good to say. Being like, okay, well, like I hear you, but like let's here write a book.
Hmm.
It gives her something to do. It distracts her, and also it proves her wrong. Again and
Sure.
again, I prove that voice wrong
Do you have to, Amy, remind yourself, wait, I've done this before 5 times? Like when you're writing this book, and you get that
all the
resistance or
time.
fear. Yeah, I'm successful at this. I've done this before. Yeah.
I'll be writing this. I'm writing a novel with my partner at the moment, and I'm like trying to figure out how to like end this plot. And I'm like, oh my god, what the fuck am I doing? I have no idea. I'm like, Amy, you've done this like 5 times before.
Yeah.
Like, it is amazing how vulnerable it feels, no matter how many times you've done it. Um, and I give myself the grace, like, art is very vulnerable, and sometimes it does feel like the first time you're doing it every time, but I'm trying to remember my experience. I think a lot of us forget how much we've already done. Even if we've not written a book before, we've done, we have this wealth of experience behind us. I really love this idea of a proof list where you just write down everything you've ever achieved, because I think so many of us
Uh,
forget what we've done, so that we can have this like tangible list of, it's like, oh no, I have gotten stuff done. I have made stuff happen.
yeah.
And actually having it on hand. So when you start doubting yourself, you just whip out your proof list and you're like, well, actually, no,
Yeah.
I'm very capable.
Yeah. Do you see that at times too? I feel like the energy shift of this, I can turn this from being nervous because I've never done this before to that's a
Excitement.
good energy. Yeah. This is telling me I'm
Mhm.
alive and I'm supposed to be doing something. And, oh, I have done this 5 times before, but this nervous energy is a good type of energy that like
It's
I'm on the
yes.
cusp of
I,
doing it again.
I love that. It's a similar reframe to that resistance, right? Like, the
Yeah.
resistance is obstacle is the way, the nerves are excitement. I'm meant to be doing this. Like, it's so beautiful. I love that. Yeah.
Mm. Amy, I want to shift to something that's it's hard. I feel like for a lot of artists to talk about. I know you're very passionate about how does an artist overcome their fear to monetize their art, right?
It's
Like I made
my
this.
favorite thing to talk about.
Yeah, I know it is. I made this and I want you to pay me for it.
Mm. So you fucking should.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so tired of this idea that money ruins the art. You made something very valuable. Fucking make people pay you for it. Like, yeah, I want artists to move past this. Like, we've got a real lineage of scarcity. And the artists that have come before us have passed down this story of there's not enough room for us, there's not enough money for us, no one pays the artist, and there are very serious systemic issues that are situated in, like, for example, the music industry. It's fucked. Like, a lot of these systems are there to keep us poor, but we are so valuable, and these industries extract so much value from us. Like, we bring crazy amounts of value to the world as artists,
Hmm.
and we deserve it. And I want us to get angry. I want us to get like, no, like, pay me. I want that energy to come behind us, rather than this idea of like, oh no, it tarnishes the art, or oh no, I don't deserve it. Yes, you deserve it. Art changes as well. It makes it bearable, and it is so fucking important. We deserve to be paid, and I want that energy for every artist, because you deserve it. We deserve money.
Sure. And we live in a world where, and I think I recently heard you speak about this. There's different platforms, right? Like you can be writing your book, but at the same time, have a Substack and,
Yeah,
monetize from, different social media platforms, and talk about that a little bit. Like, is this
yeah, I'd love
the
to.
better time than ever to be in that space of monetizing your art? Yeah.
It's never been a better time to be an artist. There's never been a better time to be a creative. Like, this is the time where it's been the easiest to make money. And that doesn't mean it's easy, but it does mean it's the easiest time. We don't need permission anymore to make money. We don't need to, to get one book deal and hopefully make some royalties from it. There are so many avenues in which we can create and make money from our creations. So for me, I'm a full-time author, but I have so many tendrils of different incomes, from, Substack to my fiction books, which are through Amazon, my nonfiction books, which are just hosted on my website, through talking, through podcasting. Like, there are so many different ways for us to monetize our creative value. And it means that we can be much more stable financially. I want this to be the age of the middle class artist. We come from a heritage of the poor artist or the very, very wealthy artist. But I think now more than ever, because of the internet, we have this ability for us to have, the age of the middle class artist, where it's like, okay, I may not be Taylor Swift, but I'm fucking comfortable and I have the money that supports me in my life. So I really want this narrative to shift, and I want us to start getting very curious about how we use the age of the connection economy to benefit the artist, to claim out the money and the value that we deserve.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. I love how passionate you are about it. And I feel like it's something that everyone, again, it's not even if someone says I'm not writing a book, but it's writing a song or creating a company. And it's like, well, I don't know if this is a good enough company that I can really charge people for my services, right? It's the same mentality.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think because art is so vulnerable and is inextricably linked with our self worth, artists find it hard to charge because it feels like they're putting a number on or monetary value on themselves. But we've got to really detach that and understand that, like, our art is valuable apart from us, and like we deserve to be paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
Put a fucking price on it and demand it and back it and champion it, because you deserve to be paid. You're making the world a better place.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, Amy, let's talk about this new book. It's titled "We Need Your Art." Tell us a little bit about it. I know the pre-order is going on now. When's
It
it going to come
is.
out? Tell me about it.
Thank you. So we need your art. It's like a little creative Bible for the artists. I want us to feel incredibly loved, championed, and taken care of as we do the brave thing and create. And so I wrote a book for us. I wrote a book for us when we're navigating procrastination issues, when we're navigating perfectionism issues, imposter syndrome, when we're feeling impatient, when we're navigating failure. I wrote a book for us to support us through success, like to prepare us for success, to prepare us to, how to celebrate this incredible life we're building. It's like a creative compendium for the whole fucking journey of being an artist, whether you're just beginning or you're extremely experienced. I think we all navigate the same shit, and we deserve support. So I wrote this book to support us in whatever it is we're moving through. There's a huge amount on, like, having taking our art seriously. If you're someone who wants to take your art seriously, like, I wrote this book for you because I want you to take your art seriously and I want to be in your fucking corner. So your pre-orders are out now. It's properly out in March next year. So we've got a pretty big lead up. But I just want everyone to know that anyone who pre-orders my book is a fucking angel to me. It really supports the author when you pre-order. It means the publishing house will probably put a bit more money behind marketing, and I just get treated a bit nicer, to be honest. So yeah, pre-orders are super important. So if you do feel called to this book, a pre-order is just a very valuable thing you can give a little author.
Yes. I will make sure we put all the information in the show notes. Order
Thank you,
Amy's book
Michael.
today. I ordered it yesterday, by the way. So,
Thank you. I'm so honestly, very, very grateful. It means a huge amount. But yeah, I'm excited. A little creative Bible so that we can, whatever it is we come across in our creative journey, you have support.
well, it's going to be one of those. I feel I kind of read, the preview on it. I'm like, this is one I'm going to keep on that shelf behind me. And, when you're stuck or just,
Thank you.
you walk in the room, you're like, I need something today. There's a few of those I look down and go, I don't know where I'm going to turn to, but I'll figure it out. And then it kind of, something opens that speaks to you
It would be a
over the years.
privilege to serve in that way. It would be very beautiful if that book could do that for you.
Read it a couple times and keep it forever and go through it 100 more times. Yeah.
Michael, thank you.
Of course, of course. How does this? Because I could tell this one's really deep for you and your soul. How does this one compare to writing your other books? Did it take longer?
Mm.
Which is it just more stressful? Did it flow easier? What was it like?
So this is my first traditionally published book. So it's been an interesting journey. Like, I chose myself, I picked myself, I published myself before this, and which meant it was all on my own terms, and it was all on my own timing. So it's been interesting working to another person's timing, but I was ready for it, Michael. Like, I've prepped my whole life for this. I wasn't I've already been writing my books, publishing my own books. And so when a publisher said, we would like you to write about this, I was like, yeah, I'm already ready. I'd already written it, most of it, just because it was a topic that really interested me. And so it was a quick writing process. I only had about 3 months.
Wow.
I had to up I had to up my 500 words a day a little bit, but again, I was ready. I've been prepping writing my 500 words every day for years, and so the fact that I had to level it up to like 700 to 1,000 for a 3 month period, it was a little challenging, and I had to take care of myself, but I was ready to do that. And then yeah, I poured every little fucking piece of my soul into it in terms of how I want to be supported as a creative. I put it into that book. And I hope that it is felt when it is read. Like, I want you to feel so held and so loved and so like this is exactly what you're meant to do when creatives read this book. That's the feeling I want to leave them with.
Mm, thank you. I know I'm one of many that can't wait to get our hands on it next spring.
Thank you.
Amie, what's in store for you in the future? There more books? I know you said you and your partner James were in the process of writing one. And do you have like this goal? I want to write this many books, in the future. Or you just flow with whatever kind of hits your heart and your soul at the time?
Yeah, I think maybe I'm weighing this thing, Michael, but there's going to be more books. I'm writing a sci-fi with James, my partner, which has been so fun. And co-writing a book has been such an adventure. I've got more historical fiction books out there. I've got coming. I've got a romance I want to write, and I want to work more and more with us, because we are fucking cool. What we're doing is so important, and I just want my whole life to be in service to what it is we do and to making sure that we feel supported on this journey. So who knows how that will look, but I know the direction I'm heading.
Love it. Amie, thank you. I have two final questions for you.
I'm ready.
Okay. And the first one, as you look back in the past 10 years, and you've created the Inspired to Write platform, and you've now just completed and released your sixth book, what's one thing you've learned about yourself as you've gone through this experience?
I am very fucking capable. And that seems kind of a basic, but I didn't realize I could do this. I didn't know I could do this. And every single time I finish a book, I'm like, wow, like I'm very capable. And I think for a lot of artists, we have so many worries that like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. But every single time you follow through and you prove to yourself that you can, you get this like deep belief. And I've surprised myself, and I'm so proud of myself. And yeah, it's still every single time I finish a book, or every single time I even just finish a post and post it on Instagram, I think, wow, I'm really capable. I can do this. And it feels solid now, which is really beautiful.
Mm. Amie, last question for you. What advice would you give to someone who's hearing the whisper of a dream or a path in life that seems too crazy to chase?
Take that fucking seriously. You like the responsible thing to do is to chase that calling. Like, you're going to hear the opposite of that a lot, that it's irresponsible, that it's delusional, but it is responsible. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to the world. Take that fucking seriously and know that I am in your corner backing you every step of the way.
Love this so much. Amie, this has been a dream. Thank you so much for being here with me today and catching up. And I know I speak for everyone listening that you are an absolute blessing to have as inspiration. And I think after this, for the few that who don't follow you, you're gonna be gaining some more fans after this. So thank you again. Best of luck on the new
Thank
book,
you.
and I'm so grateful for you being here today.
Thank you, Michael. I'm so grateful for you and so excited for your book.
Thank you.